Os doy la bienvenida a esta entrevista en la que estamos hoy compartiendo con Nuran Evransi, guionista de Mi Otra Yo, la serie que está teniendo unos resultados espectaculares en el mundo entero. Nuran Evransi es escritora y guionista de la serie Mi Otra Yo, una serie de 8 capítulos que Netflix nos ha llevado a la pantalla y que cuenta la historia de 3 amigas que se embarcan en un viaje a un pueblo costero, donde van a tener que hacer frente a montones de situaciones, entre ellas revisar las heridas del pasado. Y van a conectar con un lado más espiritual de la vida a través de una herramienta que aquí en la serie no se llama así, pero que hace referencia a las constelaciones familiares. Creo que ha trabajado 5 años para llevar todo esto adelante, ¿no? Y llevar este proyecto adelante. Y Nuran hace 2 años tuvo experiencias personales importantes y significativas en su vida. Y supongo que también todo esto te llevó a indagar un poco en lo que es la enfermedad y en el sentido de la vida, imagino, Ebram.
Yes, that's right. Yes, that's right.
Quiero darte la enhorabuena por esta maravillosa serie que la vi así sentada del principio al final porque no la podía soltar. Era como, ¿qué más viene? ¿Qué más viene? ¿Qué más viene? Es preciosa y te aseguro que la iba viendo, iba pensando, ¿quién puede estar detrás de esto que se ha escrito de una manera tan pura? Y por eso quisimos averiguar quién estaba detrás de todo esto. Y por supuesto es quien la escribe. Otras personas la van a poder mostrar, otras personas la van a dirigir o coordinar. Pero mis mayores deseos de que continúes con este éxito y con este reconocimiento. ¿Te imaginabas algo de todo esto cuando la comenzaste a escribir o cuando la estabas gestando en tu cabeza?
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. It is really very amazing that we are talking now from another country, that you really like the show, and as much as you like it, from other cultures, other continents, other countries, we are receiving very beautiful messages, and people really like the show, and it wasn't something that I imagined, actually. So as a coincidence, I am now in my room in Ankara, where I wrote the script. And on my walls, I still have my notes and pictures and my charts, and my board is over there that I was trying to figure out how do I write it. So that interview happening in this room is also really special to me. Thank you. Because normally I live in Netherlands, not in Turkey anymore. About your question, I wasn't expecting that much interest for this series. I know that we were doing something really beautiful. I knew that I was doing something that I really believe in through my experience and through my life. What I've been through in my life in different levels. And when I met the concept of family constellations in Turkey, and I participated it during 5 years, and I read about it, and my friends go to the sessions, the constellations, and we talk to each other, and we observe what is changing in our lives, in each other's lives. And as a writer, it was impossible to not to write about it, you know, because it is really important where we come from and what do we carry from our roots, and what do we do with this information is even more important. So it was a pandemic time, so all the world was having the same experience, the fear, the sickness, that we were closed in our homes and nobody could touch anyone, nobody could go out. And it was a huge examination for humanity, I guess, which made us realize we are no different. We are all connected. And it was a huge symbol of that we are so much connected that if someone had the virus, you know, it spread all over and everybody was affected. It was very metaphorical, I guess. And at that period, I needed to write a story who would carry good messages, who would carry hope, who would carry beautiful insights for all of us. So that was when I started to write this show. It was the pandemic time, very beginning of it. And I forget about your main question. I'm sorry. What was it? I am very excited. I am not used to it.
Yo estoy feliz también compartiendo este momento y me emociona muchísimo, ya lo notarás. Mi pregunta era si te imaginabas al escribir el éxito que iba a haber, la repercusión, porque es cierto que a veces hacemos cosas sin pensar a dónde vamos a llegar, ¿no? O imaginamos que vamos a llegar a un sitio, pero no nos damos cuenta del impulso tan enorme, el impacto tan grande que tiene esto, y te puedo asegurar, Ebram, en el mundo entero.
Thank you very much. Actually, I totally believed in it. When I talked to my producer, Mr. Onur Güvenatan, we've been working together for many years in many projects. And I really told him that it would be the best show I've ever written. And it would be the greatest hit that he's ever done in the digital platforms. And I was so sure about that, because it's not because I'm a good writer, it's because the material I was intended to carry out, to tell loud to people, I really trusted in that. And I knew that it was going to touch people's hearts. I was sure about that. Of course, I am not the only reason that the show was successful. It was really good produced, good directed. The actors were wonderful. The musicians was wonderful. So it is a teamwork, of course, but everybody believed in the scripts. Everybody believed in what we are trying to tell. And that united us as a team, as a family. And because of this feeling of unity, I think the energy goes out to the world from the screen. Everyone in the show, everybody who worked in the show, in the post-production, on the set, everybody who acted, they were really very caring, very truthfully, they believed in the impact of the show. And I think that was the main reason that everybody was put the good intentions and the best effort that they can put in the show. So I am thankful for every one of them also.
Es cierto que realmente actores, dirección, todo se ve como un trabajo en equipo en el que van con un objetivo muy claro, que es llegar al corazón de las personas, ¿no? Y cuando uno toca el corazón, por eso te decía antes lo de si te habías dado cuenta del impacto tan grande que puede tener. Cuando uno toca el corazón de alguien, y yo lo observo en la terapia, cuando trabajo o cuando doy una conferencia y la gente se acerca a decir, he visto un vídeo tuyo o te he escuchado o he leído un libro y eso me ha hecho reflexionar y cambiar, dices, a través de una palabra, una frase, podemos llegar a cambiar el destino, ¿no? Podemos hacer que las cosas dejen de estar estancadas y se movilicen, o que en algún momento eso que para ti significaba un problema deje de serlo. Y yo creo, no sé, ya me dirás tu reflexión, pero creo que el éxito de esta serie es precisamente el que le habla, interpela a las personas directamente al corazón y les dice, tú no eres el ombligo del mundo, tú no eres el único eslabón de una cadena que está aquí y que se observa, sino que eres uno más. Habrán por debajo tuyo, pero también han habido muchos otros que estuvieron antes, que tuvieron historias, que esas historias tuvieron un peso específico en la familia y que hoy repercuten en el presente. Y si tienes un problema o una enfermedad, revisa un poquito, mira hacia atrás, que seguramente vas a encontrar respuesta. Y esto para mí es lo que yo intento decirte, es como, esto es lo que te agradezco, porque lo has logrado.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Of course, I had really good consultants on the subject. I have to mention this because without them, I wouldn't find the right sentences for the sessions or for the character of Zaman. This is very, very important that when we are trying to put the family constellation in the concept, I really need very experienced and very trustable professionals that were doing this, which I've experienced many times by myself. So when I was writing the stories and the script and the characters, I was always sharing with them, and I was taking their insights on it. And it was so magical because then sometimes they were asking me, Mr. Sabri and his wife, Gülçin, I've been doing the sessions with them over 5 years and other stuff together, doing traveling together also. They have a really nice impact in my work, actually. So sometimes he was saying a word and I was changing the whole story because it was another perspective that I couldn't imagine before. For instance, the first sentence, can you be thankful to cancer? That sentence is so powerful. It's just a sentence, but it carries a whole concept and whole new way of thinking about our sicknesses, illnesses. And I think all those keywords were with their support, with their insight, all those keywords have catch the audience because it's something to think about. You may say no, you may say nay, yes, you may say it's a bullshit, but there is something to think about there. So again, it was a teamwork, and I am really thankful for my consultants also.
Es cierto que toda la serie tiene frases muy bien logradas y frases que diríamos en una constelación o en la terapia en general, ¿no? En este compromiso humano de acompañar a un alma en su evolución, hay cosas que tienen que estar muy estructuradas, muy claras, y que no puede ser un invento porque sí, porque igualmente tocaría, ¿no?, a ese inconsciente que está del otro lado. Y en la serie todas las frases son puras, son mágicas, son orgánicas, están insertadas de una manera muy, muy clara dentro de todo el guión. Ya has dicho las investigaciones que realizaste y la gente que te ha acompañado también para poder conseguir este resultado. Y una pregunta sería, ¿cómo te has preparado tú espiritualmente en todo tu recorrido? Hoy creo que tienes 42 años, Ebren, y en este recorrido de vida, aparte de estos 5 años que has estado practicando estas constelaciones con este matrimonio, ¿cómo te has preparado espiritualmente para llegar aquí?
It's a very beautiful question, but I don't know the answer. Because I think some subjects as a writer, they find you, they choose you. They want you to talk about them, to write about them. I think that concept have chosen me because as a spiritual journey, let's say, it's a whole lifetime, right? You know, we go through experiences, we travel, we meet people, we have difficulties, we have sicknesses, somebody dies in our family, somebody gets sick, and everything that we experience has a mark in our minds and in our hearts. So what exactly prepared me to this TV show? I don't know the answer. I think that everything. I can start from my grandfather's letter. When I was 6 years old, I didn't even know how to read and write. I was a little kid, and my grandfather, father of my father, he wrote me a letter that he is imagining me as in fine arts, as in television or cinema or theater, and I am writing, producing things for everyone in the world. That was his imagination when I was 6 years old, and I don't know where it comes from to him. And why did he wrote this letter? And I found this letter only a few years ago. And I was shocked because I've been writing scripts for more than 16 years right now, and I'm in cinema business more than 20 years. And I didn't know about that letter. And when I find it, I was like, okay, so is it he, my ancestor, my grandfather, was he planted this idea in me when I was a small kid, or he just sensed it? I don't know the answer. But what I know is that I traveled a lot. I love traveling. I've been participating to other spiritual journeys, studies, yoga retreats. I've been to Mexico. I've been to India. I lived in Brazil for a year. So everywhere I go, who had a different mindset about what do we believe in, how do we deal with our problems, how do we heal ourselves, or how do we make bad things to ourselves. In every culture, I've observed something. For instance, in Brazil, I was there when I was 18, and I went there as a teenage girl from a Muslim Islamic country with traditions and everything. And I didn't even know the language. But a family I met there, they had me as their girl for a year. Família Neves, eu quero agradecer para eles para sempre. And with that family, I had a very different view of life, very different way of being a family. They were Catholic, and first time I was seeing a Jesus picture in a house, and we were talking about it. So I was connecting the informations. I was realizing that whatever we believe in, we are similar as humans. It doesn't matter which language we speak. It doesn't matter which religion we believe in. We have common treasures in ourselves. We have common stories, common exams that we are passing through in our lives. And since that day, I try to write to understand the world better for myself at first. And if I am getting to sense something, I am trying to reflect it in my writings. So if I need to speak specifically about this TV show, when I attended my first family constellation, it was in Cappadocia with Sabri Salış, and I was forced to do it. I didn't want to do it. I was there for another reason. I was writing another script at that time. It was the final episode of a very famous Turkish series, and I was very stressed, and I was trying to get away from the constellation because I was so busy. And my friends, they insisted, and one of them told me, "You are a writer, you should experience this." And then I get in, and for a couple of hours, I was shocked, and I couldn't believe what was happening there. I couldn't understand. And when it was my turn, and somebody that I don't know, a young girl, she represented me. And then she started to cry like a baby. And I was so touched, and I started to cry, but I didn't know why I was crying. Then it turned out that it was my birth. When my mom was giving birth to me, I almost died, and she almost died, and because the thing was on my neck, and I was purple, and I couldn't breathe, and the water was gone, and the doctors were bad to my mom. They didn't treat well. So I kind of died and come back when I was born. And I didn't know about this story. My mom never told me about my birth. And after this session, I realized the problems that I am having with my mom were mostly based on that experience. In many ways, it's complicated. It's you know it very well than I do. It's not easy to put it in words. But after that experience, my relationship with my mom changed very much and very suddenly. And we didn't need to talk about all these subjects. I just asked my mom, "Mom, how was my birth?" And she started to cry. And I didn't know a word of this experience before. So how could I not write about family constellations? It was my first experience. Then I, over 20 times, maybe 30 times, I've been there. And when my consultant, Sabri Salış, after 1 year, I guess, he asked me if I want to write a TV show or a movie about this subject. And I said, "Oh my God, it hasn't done before. Of course, it would be a great idea, but I need to observe more. I need to experience more. I don't feel like I can write it now. I'm not ready." So for the rest of 4 years, I continued attending their studies, and he explained me many things. It was like an education between us. You know, I was going and observing, I was taking my notes, I was reading Bert Hellinger's almost every book and other books with different perspectives. And because of my father's sickness, cancer, I also read so many things about why is cancer happening. Not in a physical way, but what is the message that this sickness carries with us? And what do we do when we have cancer? When one of our family members have cancer, it's so hard, so difficult. Their mood is changing, you know, their personality is changing, and you don't know how can you help them. That's what I've been through with my father. And at that time, I also went to family constellation to find a way, to find an answer, to do something for him. And it was also very powerful. And at the same time, my sister in Brazil, Amanda, She was also dealing with cancer, and she was so young. She had a young baby girl, Lorena. And after my father passed away, she passed away in just 2 weeks. So all those experiences gave me the message that I have to write something for myself, for my father, for my ancestors, for my sister. I still feel this beautiful power coming from them. I think those tears are kind of hugs from them. I really feel like that. And that was my aim. I would write a story. It would be named by another self, and I am going to search what other selves do we have inside us, including our ancestors, including our parents, including our other selves, other sides. And I think the story, the characters themselves, they made me write them. I truly believe that they exist somewhere in the universe, and they made me write about them. It was a long talk, sorry.
Me parece estupendo. Y te agradezco que hayas contado algo tan personal en este instante, porque eso es precisamente lo que te pudo llevar a afinar tanto con este guión, ¿no? Cuando uno lo tiene muy interiorizado, trabaja desde el propio ser. Cuando uno lo hace desde el ego, pues la manifestación sí puede ser un éxito, pero es completamente distinto. Y creo, por otro lado, me imagino que a ti, que has conocido esta terapia, seguramente has visto otro tipo de terapias también, ¿no? Que te han permitido hacer clic dentro de la cabeza y unir todo para entender el concepto de enfermedad, que como bien dices, afecta no solo a la persona, afecta a todos los que están alrededor, que tienen muchísimo miedo y que se apegan a esa persona que poquito a poco va perdiendo esa luz o esa fuerza o esa energía para marcharse a otro plano. Y que desde las constelaciones siempre decimos, sigue un destino, tiene un camino, y en ese camino hay que respetar la decisión tomada. Te están dando apoyo.
Yeah, my husband.
Ya, claro, claro. Me encanta, acompáñale porque es un momento muy íntimo y que moviliza mucho.
Yes, sure. He always supported during all my writing process. He read everything, he asked me questions, and he really contributed to the project very much as a very shiny shadow, let's say.
I'm very proud of her.
Sí, porque es muy importante, creo, al menos yo he escrito 3 libros, y siempre que escribo se lo paso a mi marido y le digo, a ver, tú con mirada de yo no entiendo nada, dame tu opinión para ver si esto puede llegar o no llegar y qué cosas cambiarías de esto. Entonces, es una labor que no se ve la tuya, te felicito también por el trabajo, aunque no te pongan en tu nombre, sí, sabemos todos de que estás ahí. Y es un trabajo muy intenso también, porque la persona que está escribiendo, o en tu caso, ¿no?, guionando algo, necesita de una dedicación absoluta a lo que está haciendo. Al menos eso es así para mí. Y yo me olvido del mundo, pero tengo un soporte maravilloso detrás, que es Carlos, mi marido, desde hace 37 años. O sea que os deseo un buen camino juntos.
Oh my. It's been 3 months that we get married.
No, don't worry.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Sí, pero 3 años que estáis juntos, ¿no? 3 años que se conocen.
3 years ago. Yes, 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 yes. Thank you, Janum. Yeah, it is very
Pues,
important.
es
to
muy
be-
bonito apoyarse en la fuerza del otro. No solo sentir al padre y a la madre detrás nuestro, sino también lo que construimos, hacia dónde miramos.
Yes, it's very, very, very important because writing is a really lonely job, you know. You are different than me. You are seeing other people going to give lectures and you have sessions one-to-one or group therapies, but I am all alone when I write. And it is sometimes very painful and very lonely and very depressive. So you really need someone that you trust to share your material, to share your thoughts, to share your writing. Not a professional necessarily. As an audience, as someone that you really trust about his feelings or her feelings. So he was really amazing. He made me focus on different things as a man also. I was writing about 3 women as a woman, but when he was reading, he was asking such questions. I was like, okay, yeah, a man should probably wouldn't feel that way, or a man would probably be different, will give different reactions to this. So I was always asking his ideas, and he has really good insights in the series.
Me parece espectacular porque realmente es sentir lo masculino, lo femenino de manera equilibrada, ¿no? Ebram, ¿cómo se logró llevar este proyecto a Netflix? Una gran plataforma, cambiando de registro, una gran plataforma que te permite poner algo, un producto que hace mover al mundo, que está polarizado o dividido muchas veces en lo emocional y lo racional. Y aquí una serie que además con una de las constelaciones también lo muestra, ¿no? Cuando Ada le hace poner a los 2 personajes, con una serie que moviliza a mostrar que lo racional está, pero que también la parte emocional ha de ser tenida en cuenta. ¿Cómo habéis podido? ¿Quién fue el principal autor o la persona que dijo, apostemos por esto, sigamos adelante?
Okay, so it's a very beautiful question as well. I've done another show for Netflix 2 years ago. The international name is The Gift. In Turkish name, it's Atiye. And it was the second TV show that Netflix done in Turkey with the Turkish actors and Turkish teams. And because of that project, because I was the one who brought the idea again, it was from a book. The idea, the inspiration came from a book, and I pitched this idea to Netflix heads in Istanbul. That was our first meeting, and the same producer, Onur Güven Atam, made me meet with the Netflix heads. And I think he referred me as a good writer, and I have many good ideas, projects. So our first project was Atiye, The Gift, and it was successful. And we get to know each other with Netflix executives during this process, because we are different, because in Turkey, Netflix was very new and we didn't know each other. They didn't know how do we work and what do we produce and what do we write, what was our powerful things, or our differences from the other writers of the other countries. So it was 3 years, 4 years of getting to know each other. And Atiye was one of those projects, and it was very precious to me. And it was a spiritual journey as well of a woman. So after that project, they were asking me also, Evren, what is next? What do you want to do next? And it was a great honor, because I knew that if I was going to write a good script, they were going to buy it, they were going to produce it, because they already trusted in me and my writing. And it was a huge chance actually for me. So when I made my projects, pitching, and I put beautiful pictures, I talked about family constellation, what is it? I talked about Hellinger, I talked about Ayvalık, the 3 characters, and what I was trying to do, and what is the inside of the show. So it was like an 80 pages of document with the photographs and everything, and the stories, character analysis and everything, which showed them that I was truly passionate about doing it, you know. And I will show you just one page from here. So it was like this, and it is still on my window. So this is a scene from Ayvalık, and this is Ada with her sexy outfits waiting for her husband scene page. So all the file was so detailed, and I could see the whole project. They trusted me, and they said, okay, Evren, do it. Because I had a writer's room, I had other friends of my colleagues. We were discussing the stories and the characters together, 4 or 5 people, because Netflix uses this system, like they have writers' rooms, and each episode somebody else writes it, and there is a creator and a head writer, but directors and screenwriters are changing every episode. Then we decided that I have to write it alone, because it was something personal, because it was something that I need to keep the vibe. And so after the story meetings with that team, I am really very thankful for each of them too. They put their insights and their touches in the project also. But when I was writing the scripts, I was alone. Just 2 episodes, there was a co-writer, Ayşenur. She helped me because I was tired on the halfway. And that's how we wrote it. And Netflix always supports the creative people. They really support, and they try to make your business, make your writing shine. Every note they give, every question they ask, or if they don't like something, they have a reason. And when I think over it, I see why don't they like it. So it was a very beautiful teamwork with the Netflix executives as well. They asked many questions about family constellation and how does it work and how do we shoot it? Is it real? Is it not? Is it fiction? So we had many conversations with them too. But in the end, I think they also like it. And beyond this, I think the friendship of the 3 women, I think it was so charming, and the actresses was so true and so real. So even someone wouldn't care about family constellation size, I think those girls, those women, their friendship and the energy between them and what is happening in their life was already, interesting enough for the people. So I try to balance it. I try to balance, like it will be a heart-opening series, and also it has some hard stories in it. It has some painful stories, painful situations in it. But I never wanted it to be a dark series or a painful series or a tragedy. I always wish that if it should give hope to people, it should be very easy and very heart opening to watch this show.
Sí. Se nota que hay una movilización y en todas las personas, toda la gente con la que yo he hablado, todo el mundo comenta eso, ¿no? De cómo impacta. Y cuando me preguntaron, pero ¿por qué tiene éxito esta serie? ¿Por qué crees que es buena esta serie? Dije, porque son 3 personas corrientes del día a día, 3 amigas con sus problemáticas que podemos ser tú y yo y quien sea, ¿no? Que se ve reflejado ahí. Y eso es lo bueno, que supongo que hay parte de tu vida, ¿no? De tu historia también en el guión, pero habría de la mía y de cualquiera, porque es lo que nos ocurre como cosas básicas en esta existencia: enfermarnos, tener relaciones, tener problemas con los padres o dificultades en la vida. Y dentro de estos personajes hay uno que para mí tiene un impacto, aparte de las 3 amigas, ¿no? Que es Samán, que nos deja reflexiones, metáforas y frases muy, muy profundas. ¿Y cómo construiste a este personaje y sus reflexiones?
Yeah. Yes, actually, I can say I was inspired. Sorry about my cough. I was COVID last week and I am still healing. Okay, I imagined Zaman. He is a fiction character. I can't say that that person is Zaman or I am inspired by that person. I imagine Zaman. I cannot give too much spoiler because probably and hopefully we are going to have a second season and we will get to know Zaman better. The words of Zaman or the therapy technique he does is inspired from Sabri Salih. That was my consultant for the series. Because what he does is a little different than the other family constellators does, I think. As much as I hear or because I didn't participate any other ones. So some words, some techniques, the way he asks something in the session comes from him, because when I wrote the situations, we were writing the Zaman's words together with him. Like, he should ask this, and that person need to move to there, and then he asks this. So he really gave me, if it was a real family constellation, or in our series, it has a different name, which he put it. That will be like this. So we really, that words and sentences come from him, but the personality, it's a mixture of a lot of people that I've met or I haven't met yet, you know, and you will see it better if we have the second season, I guess. The name, interesting, the name comes from my very best friend, Aslı's grandfather. So he passed away like 10 years ago, but his name is Zaman. And I was so amazed with his name. And he was such a different and elegant guy. And I asked my friend Aslı, can I use your grandfather's name in my series? Because it's so beautiful. And he came from Iran to Turkey. So a little bit of him and a little bit of other people he carries. But I think the main thing that he is imaginary, which would make me feel more free about him. If he was a real person, you know, there would be conflicts, like maybe I couldn't be so free about his character and his past and his story. So he is fiction. But his words and his wisdom, I am totally inspired by Bert Hellinger, other people working on the subject, Mr. Sabri Salış, Mark Volin, his book, you know, and I don't know, that's as much as other characters make themselves right, written by me, Zaman also. I sat and I was thinking about the scene. How could he explain Ada about what is happening there? I was thinking about that scene for days and weeks maybe, because it was really hard and it should be short and powerful. And then I find that olive tree metaphor, like with the roots, if the roots are sick, how can the fruit could be healthful, healthy? And that just came to me. It wasn't something that I read somewhere. I didn't even know if there is a treatment for the roots when I wrote the scene. And then I searched and find, yes, there is a mixture that they put in the roots. So I was helped, I guess.
Muy bien. También Saman les pide a las personas que asisten que hagan rituales, y eso es maravilloso porque es la forma en que tiene el inconsciente de cerrar un ciclo de dolor, de decir, ya está, ahora ya puedo pasar a otra cosa. Y es muy bonito los rituales que se proponen para finalizar, ¿no? Como por ejemplo, también el plantar un árbol y que lo pueda hacer con la pareja, el poder, con la expareja, vaya, el poder darle un lugar en el corazón al hijo que no ha llegado a la vida. ¿Cómo supiste encontrar el ritual tan adecuado para cada persona?
Oh, that was the rituals that I was observing for 5 years when I was going to the family constellation sessions with Sabri Salış. He was always giving a ritual to me or to other participants. Sometimes it is going to visit somewhere. Sometimes it is going to visit the land, the ancestors' lands. Sometimes it is helping a child, I don't know, sometimes it is feeding a street animal, something very little. Sometimes it was planting a tree, an olive tree, another tree. And for that scene, he recommended to plant a specific type of tree. I don't know the English name, sorry, and Spanish name, but it's a specific tree, not an ordinary one. And our director, Burcu, really tried really hard to find that specific tree, because that tree is the right tree for this ritual. I would find the name and then send you. So he was giving me the clues about what should it be. Freeing a bird, if the ancestor was in a prison and it was the issue. And what is beautiful, and it's also cinematic, to letting a bird fly away, to free it, you know. It is something that he is doing in his sessions, like giving homeworks to the participants. So that was all, those were his ideas, actually. But our director, Burcu, was very good and resistant about realizing everything in the scripts. And this is very important also, you know. If she was like, oh, that tree doesn't matter, let it be a flower or let it be something else, it wouldn't have the same impact. So it's a teamwork again. Huh? He brought me the Google Translate to find the tree. Okay, I will do it.
El árbol. Ya lo buscaremos. Ya iremos a Turquía también, a ver si vemos el sitio donde se grabó y todas estas zonas. Me gustaría preguntarte qué supuso para los actores tú que seguramente los has tenido muy cerca y son personas muy reconocidas en Turquía y en muchos otros países, ¿no? ¿Qué supuso para ellos experimentar historias tan humanas dentro de sus personajes?
I think they should answer it, but as I observed, or as we talked to each other, they were really very happy about the first time we met and we did the family constellation together. It was a very different experience for every one of us. And we did family constellations for ourselves and for the characters. So it was like Tuba was there, sitting there, and she picked someone as Ada, her character, and she picked Toprak, she picked Murat. And so it was so interesting, the actors themselves trying to pick the characters, but the ones they pick were a perfect match in the story. You know, for instance, Tuba was picking someone for joy in her life, Ada's life, for the joy in Ada's life, and she was picking Seda, the actress who was acting Leyla. So it was so magical, and when I was there observing those constellations, I felt that this is, I don't know how to I put it, but I think constellations is a new language, is a pure and whole new language, a language which doesn't have letters or an alphabet, but a language that we can feel the information, we can feel something without talking to each other. That was my experience in the family constellation. And when it was finished, everyone there was really connected, and everyone was really engaged in the project and the characters and to each other, because there were tears, there were hugs, there were laughters, and we suddenly became very close. Me, the director Burcu, all the actors and our producers were there. It was a revolutionary thing for the, I don't know, for the sector, for the television or movie makers, I think. And as a writer, it was so amazing that all those characters that I was thinking alone in my room, you know, in the darkness, I was writing about them, and they didn't exist. And suddenly they were there, existing and moving. And even if they didn't know about their past stories as the characters, they didn't know as much as I do, but they talked the way that like they knew it, you know. And I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. This show is something different, you know. It's there is an energy, there's a message that has to come out here. So from that point on, in every difficulties, in everything that wasn't going right in the production process or in the writing process, whatever, when we have obstacles, we were like, okay, then it should be this way. Okay, let's adapt ourselves and let it flow, because we are serving something higher than us. That was the feeling all the way through.
No, esto es maravilloso, haberse dejado llevar por lo que se siente para construir algo que la gente tiene que entender. Y me quedo con algo que has dicho, Evren, que es que tendremos segunda temporada. ¿Lo confirmas?
I am not authorized. I am not authorized to announce it, but hopefully.
No. Esperemos que sí.
Yes. yeah, we wish all of us. I am dying to write more about those characters, and there's so much material, so many themes that we need to talk about. Every character has other secrets, other conflicts, and I feel so connected to them. Then even if we don't have a second season, I'm going to write it for sure.
Exacto. Sí, es maravilloso todo lo que has hecho y lo que tenga que venir ya vendrá. Esto te lo agradezco de corazón y la verdad que te agradezco también este encuentro que ha sido precioso y me gustaría que si tienes algo para decirle a los espectadores, a toda la gente que te va a ver, si quieres agregar algo más, este es el momento.
Oh, thank you very much. I am very honored. I've been writing scripts more than 20 years, in a professional way more than 15 years. This is the first time that I feel so honored as a screenwriter, because the writers are always in the darkness, because the audience, when they don't like something, they really easily blame the writers. But when something is good, the writers is forgotten, It's always about the actors and the producers and the production value, or the directors and everything. And writers are always unseen people all over the world. This is very, very, very honoring and important to me that you invited me to this interview. You wanted to get to know about me. And this is so inspiring. To be honored, to be acknowledged as a writer. So I thank you, and I thank to all the audiences, because they made me feel like I am doing something good, which would be my fuel to do more better works for everyone, for all of us. And I am really thankful for the audiences, especially from Spanish-speaking countries and Portuguese-speaking countries. It is amazing that our cultures are so different, but we are so connected through stories, to this story. And I feel like my world is expanding through your reactions and through your love to this subject and to this series. We are not alone, and we are all connected. In a very deep and profound way. It is so powerful to feel that. And I am very thankful for all the audiences and for you, that you make us feel safe and loved. Thank you very much.
Te agradezco enormemente tus palabras, de verdad, Nuran Ebren. Y de verdad que la responsabilidad de cada cosa que hacemos es enorme, y si tanta gente, tanta masa crítica llega a comprender la potencia que tiene el responsabilizarse de su vida, el mundo entero cambiaría. No habrían guerras, no habrían historias de estas en las que solo se trata de mirar la historia que hay por detrás y sanar. Y esto lo has expresado de una manera tan fantástica, tan fácil para que entre en la vida de todas las personas, que de verdad, de corazón, mil gracias.
Muchas gracias, muchas gracias.
Hasta otra. Nos vemos en la siguiente. Un beso muy grande. Gracias por estar aquí. Hasta pronto.
Besos para todo el mundo.
Esperamos en Barcelona.
Yes, I will very soon.
Bye, bye. Si has visto esta maravillosa entrevista con Nuran Evrensit y te apetece indagar en el mundo de las constelaciones familiares, te invito a que te pases por Instituto Ángeles Walder y puedas ver el curso de iniciación a las constelaciones en las que se trabaja a nivel personal, en las que hay unas búsquedas internas de todo lo que tiene que ver con nuestro legado y con lo que nos han legado los que estuvieron antes.